I tend to talk a lot to young people in general, just go for it. And that's exactly what you asked me at the beginning. What's your recommendation? Just go for it. If you enjoy it, just go for it, do it. And as one of my friends used to say, if you perform, things will work out.
Are you working in research, trying to do the best science you can?
Are you a team leader, a research assistant, postdoc, PhD student, or any other type of scientist?
Are you looking for a place where you can sit, relax, and listen to inspiring people?
Well, we have good news for you. You've just found what you're looking for.
Hi everybody, my name is Renaud Pourpre.
And I am Jonathan Weitzman.
Welcome to the Lonely Pipette,
helping scientists
do better science.
My name is Maria-Elena Torres-Padilla. I study how chromatin influences stem cell potency and cell fate at the Helmholtz Center in Munich, in Germany. And I am very excited to share my tips with the Lonely Pipette.
Maria-Elena Torres-Padilla began her studies at the National University of Mexico, followed by a PhD in Mary Weiss's lab at the Pasteur Institute in Paris. She was a postdoc at the Gurdon Institute in Cambridge, UK, before returning to France to become a research scientist, first in Laszlo Torres' lab and then as a group leader at the IGBMC in Strasbourg. In 2016, she moved to Germany to become the director of the Institute of Epigenetics and Stem Cells in the Helmholtz Center, Munich. Her lab works on chromatin and epigenetic regulation of gene expression in stem cells during early mouse development. Maria-Elena is a born leader, and she has coordinated many large collaborative initiatives, including the Lifetime Flagship Project. She has many prestigious awards, including an ERC starting grant and the ATIP Avenir Award. She's a member of the EMBO and won the Foundation Schlumberger Prize and the German Stem Cell Network Female Award. She's also on the editorial board of many journals, including Development and the Journal of Cell Biology. Maria-Elena, thanks for coming to give tips to the Lonely Pipette.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Maria-Elena. It's a pleasure to have you here. And we want to start asking you a question about your story, how everything have started. And for that, I want to ask you how you decided to become a scientist.
I always feel very embarrassed when people ask me that. And for many years, I never gave a proper answer to that question. Until I realized that I met one of my students who had even a more drastic story. So I decided I wanted to do a PhD, I think when I was 13 years old. And that was a little bit of an interesting conversation. It was my first ever course of French. I was in Mexico at the Alliance Française, and the teacher asked us, why do you want to speak French? Just like a round table. And I said, because I want to do my PhD in the Pasteur Institute. I was 13. So that's a little bit of unusual or maybe even scary story for many young people. And as I said, I realized one of my students decided he wanted to be a researcher when he was 7. So I thought if I was 13, it was not so bad. I mean, honestly, I think that probably what is the true reason why I decided to do research is because I have always been fascinated by trying to understand how things work, how life works. And I remember, I had a fantastic biology teacher, and, she was teaching us about paramecia and how they conjugate and all these things. And I was just fascinated about life. So curiosity, I could say, is what drove me to do research.
Good. What would you have done if you didn't become a biologist now?
This also is an interesting question. I think I would probably have gone into art. I've always wondered how it could be to be a museum curator. That's one thing that I'm really interested in. Something else that I enjoy a lot, and I guess this comes a little bit from my mentorship now kind of experience, is consulting, decision-making, coaching. This is something that I also like a lot. But I think my first answer could have been museum curator.
In art? Are you doing some art thing nowadays?
Oh, no. No. Only confocal microscopy and microinjection when it works. But actually, no, this is a good question that you tell me, because we do have some projects on artists in residency. One of them, actually, we just started with a bio artist in the UK with Anna, and I'm very excited about it, actually. I have been interested in finding new ways of communicating science by using, for example, art. And this is a project that I've been trying to get started in the last 3.5 years, and finally we just kicked it 2 weeks ago.
That's great. So I actually I have an art science project in a teaching context, and I spent this morning actually with a young Israeli artist trying to work out how we're going to work together. So can you think have there been times in your career where things have sort of taken a plunge and you thought about leaving science? Can you think of some time?
I have never thought about leaving science, but there have been moments when things are complex or difficult, or where it takes a bit more of your time or your guts than what it should take. But I've never casted any doubt on doing science. I said from the beginning, I'm maybe a little bit unusual, but I'm passionate about what I'm doing. So even though we've all had failures that we rarely talk about, or difficult moments, and you wonder, well, will I ever make it? And will I actually manage to do any interesting contributions? But that never drove me to thinking about leaving science at all. Not yet.
So you said you're passionate about what you do. How have you chosen the subjects that you've worked on over the years?
So I guess that it was also driven by a mixture between curiosity and excitement. At the beginning, when I first started, I spent my afternoons, that was in Mexico, in a lab that was studying immunology, and I was fascinated by parasites. And obviously, parasites are a health problem in Mexico, which was important. So I thought that was probably something very exciting. And I spent a bit more than a year working on how antigen presentation influences antibody production for amoebiasis. After that, I became very interested in cell communication, so I went into signal transduction. And then when I wanted to decide what I would be doing for my PhD, I said, okay, cell communication is great, but what I want is to try to understand how the cells actually respond to that communication in terms of transcriptional program. And that's how I ended up with Mary, because I wanted to look at transcription factors and cell differentiation. And then I went to epigenetics, because I thought, okay, one transcription factor is only one transcription factor. I want to look globally at what the whole genome is doing. And that's how I ended up in chromatin. And I guess that the mouse embryo was a really very interesting system for many reasons. But we knew very little about the chromatin organization and how chromatin was perhaps, at that time we didn't really even know, but perhaps really regulating the very first stages of life, which is basically where we studied. And I thought that the cell-fate decisions, because they were happening for the first time, that was like a very naive ground in terms of chromatin. So I think there is a little bit of a line of thought in my choices, but they were always driven by what I was really wanting to study. I mean, I did immunology, I did cellular communication and GPCRs.
But where does that come from? Is that sort of a gut feeling?
Yeah. I guess that, probably when I chose my postdoc topic, there was my gut feeling, obviously, because I think without gut feeling, I don't think one gets excited about science. And I don't think one should do science if you're not excited about it. But I did think about what system I could study these questions in, so that I could have something a little bit unique, if it worked, for later, for basically establishing a new topic of research, a new sort of niche, potentially. That was a risky decision, because at that time there were not many people doing what we're doing now. But I think it was very interesting. Basically, like open ground to the kind of questions that one could address with the system.
That's great. Yeah, for what I see, it's like, yeah, sure, there's the curiosity in your guts and what you like, but also that you were able to look at the landscape, identify the points where somewhere models, there were gaps, and you could just go there even if it was a bit risky. So you weren't afraid of this risk of going there? I
think I was very naive. I think I didn't even see that there was. Now I see.
Not just the chromatin was naive. But
no, because When you're really driven by curiosity, you sometimes don't even, you first do the gut decision, and then you start to put the logistics, as we say, right? And the risks where, there's no approach where we can look at the chromatin modifications in those stages back then. Now it is possible. So the risk in terms of how to address the questions was, I would say, technologically, experimentally. I don't think I realized it, and I didn't care. And I think that was good, because sometimes I find that people nowadays sometimes ask themselves too many questions of what is it that could make things fail. And I think you have to be aware of the risk, but at the same time, you just have to also go for it. Sometimes if you think too much, then you don't do the things, and I'm not sure that's a good thing.
Is this an advice or tips that you can offer to young scientists to say that, identify these risks, but also if you want to produce something, an innovation or something new, you should go there?
Yeah, you just have to go for it. I mean, if you sit down and think about 100 reasons of why not to do an experiment, you'll end up not doing the experiment. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to carefully think about the experiment, right? You have to design the experiment properly. But yeah, so from time to time, I do say to the people in the lab, maybe we just have to do experiment, and otherwise you'll never know the answer.
So you traveled around a lot, and you've been to some great labs. We'll talk about that in a moment. But are there mentoring practices that you saw, that you got from your mentors, that then you brought into your own lab?
I don't know if I have a concrete answer to that. I think I have had the privilege of meeting exceptional people throughout my career, in my labs and outside of the labs where I've been to. I think I could say maybe I have a little of a combined style of mentorship. And of course, the mentorship practices have to be asked to the mentees, not to the mentor, because these are the ones who have to say how good or how bad you do the job. In terms of the way the labs where I've been were running, sometimes, you think, okay, maybe this is not great, this is not super good, but this is very good. But that's more like, how you manage the lab and you organize it. I guess that my mentorship style, if I have any, is more an accumulation of talks with people throughout the last 20 years at all levels, right? The young ones and the older ones. Sometimes you get outstanding people that you meet just by chance somewhere, telling you very, very, very important things. And
can you think of examples of mentoring advice that you've heard that you thought, oh no, that's bad advice? Are there some sort of common myths that you've come across?
Maybe I can tell you something that I thought was good. I have always thought, and I think this someone asked me the same question not long ago, that you have to try to attract people who are better than you working with you. Because then it's fun, right? Then we really learn from the people who you're working with. And I think that I often saw on some of my colleagues that they were maybe scared about, being compared with their trainees and so on, and not being better. I think a good advice is, don't think as a mentor, don't think you're better than the people you recruit just because you're older or just because you've had your postdoc papers already. Don't compete with the people that you have around you, but build together with the people. Everybody has a different role. And I think the role recognition in the lab is very important. It's not that one person is better than another one. It's just everybody has a different role. Everybody has different objectives. So having a little bit of a mix between recognizing that everybody has different aims in life and trying to bring that together to a common team objective is probably what I could say has been a combination of good advice and practice, which is not easy to put in practice, but I try.
So we were talking about mentoring. So actually what you said is, so Moshe Yaniv, he was very good at that, but I heard him once talk about someone else who was recruiting people, and he said that she was always scared to recruit someone who was better than she was. And he said, he always told me, you got to recruit people who are better than you. That's how you build a team.
And that's how you have fun, right? Because,
yeah.
You're in a permanent learning process. It doesn't matter which stage of your career you are. So, of course, you want to learn from the best, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how could we advise young scientists to find these good people? How can they identify them? Or Is it again a gut feeling, or do they have to, I don't know, go to meetings, talk with people? What have you done, for example?
I don't know if there is one magic recipe. I think what is important is that a good relationship with the boss, or with your group leader, or with your team members, is not only dependent on how good mentor your boss or your team members are. I think there is also a little bit of needs and personality that everybody has. There are some people who are very comfortable working in very large groups. And there are people who want or think that they need a smaller working group. So I think, first of all, recognizing what is important for you in terms of development, I think this is essential. And then try to find someone who has a style or a record in that direction, right? There's very big labs, there's small labs. And that doesn't mean that the boss is worse or better. That just means it's different. And I think that is probably important, at least, what I've seen in the recent years. And of course, you have to talk to the people in the lab who have been trained by the people, even if they have left. Actually, even better if they have left, because they can compare. You can see, for example, if you're looking for a lab for postdoc, how often is this person publishing? Is there just like one single author? Or is there several authors in the papers? Because that tells you also whether the group works as a team or as an individual, how many papers come in collaborations. There's a bunch of things that I think you can read from the literature already. But I think talking to the people who have worked with that particular mentor is very important. And also being very open, right? Usually when I interview students or postdocs, I'm very blunt in the sense that, I usually ask, what are your expectations? And then you also share your expectations, right? And if they match, that's great. And if they don't, it doesn't matter, right? Just then maybe it's not the right place to come or the right person to bring over.
So you came all the way from Mexico to work with Mary Weiss. Did you know what you were expecting? Did you know what you were getting into?
I don't think so.
Yes. I was lucky enough to meet Mary when I came to Pasteur. But she was quite a personality, yeah.
I also think that, that was 20 years ago, Jonathan. And I think things have changed a lot. The young people in the audience are going to laugh, but I didn't have my own email address until I was at university. And I sent my first applications to Mary by paper. It was not email, it was a paper. So having this Zoom or these possibilities that we have nowadays, we didn't have those. So I guess my expectations were mostly academic. I was obviously very important, and I forgot about that point. This is super important, right? The academic education, the academic part of your choice is very, very important. And Mary had a stellar career. she did outstanding contributions in the field. It was, I joined her lab a bit soon before she closed it for retirement, but she had a tremendous influence on a field in terms of self identity. I think my expectations were mostly academic. I wanted to learn as much as I could and to work as much as I could. I was always thinking, I'm coming from Mexico, people will be looking down at me. So I have to work hard until things work. And in that regard, I think it was good.
So what were the challenges of coming as a graduate student to a foreign country? How difficult was that? As you say, also coming from a country that had less of a science reputation, even though there are some excellent labs in Mexico.
Yeah, so I think, I had the privilege of having worked in Mexico in one of the best labs. My mentor in Mexico, Garcia Sainz, was really an outstanding, he's an outstanding person. He's still alive. So I think I had really a fantastic education. So I think that was not a problem, but I did find people when I moved, and I still find that nowadays, that thing, you're from Mexico, so they don't take you seriously. That was not the case of Mary, of course. Mary, was not like that, otherwise she wouldn't have taken me, I guess. So challenges, what did I find challenging? Maybe, I don't think I found a particular challenge. There's a lot of things that one has to organize, right? But there's from the time point that you decide to leave a country, you know that there's some paperwork to be done. The paperwork is the same in every country I've worked in. Well, the same. It's different, but equally complicated. So yes, maybe just trying to find your place a little bit, right? A new identity in a sense. When you leave a place where you've lived 10, 20 years, everybody knows you, or and you start from zero. So you start to try to see how people perceive you.
Did you know that you were not going to go back?
No, I didn't actually. I had a completely different plan when I left. And I can also tell you about that. My plan was very quadratisch, as we say in German. It was, I thought I have my PhD in Europe, in a country full of culture, full of history and European. And then I thought about doing my postdoc in the US, because I thought like this, I really have the two ways of doing science and I will experience both of them. And then I go back to Mexico. And that didn't happen. So the first step happened, but then afterwards it didn't happen. What
was the attraction of Paris? Because I came to the Pasteur probably about the same sort of time, but I came because I got married. I got married, so I came as it was the place we could go as a couple, whereas you came by yourself, right?
Yeah, I guess that France was a very attractive option, because I thought that if I'm going to leave to do my PhD, I didn't want to cover only the academic part. I wanted to be in a place where I could learn socially. And at that time, Paris was very different to what it is now, if I may say. Culturally, in terms of, really just historically, that was a very strong attraction. Obviously, that probably had something very strong, that had a very strong influence from the way that my father raised me, right? That it was always like, open up and go and see the world in a very broad perspective. So we were always raised in an environment of, look for the culture, look for the education. And I guess that was the reason also why I didn't go to the US. Most of the people from my generation went to the US.
You were looking for to enrich yourself for all the side of being in a foreign country, socially, culturally.
Exactly. And I guess this is the reason why I didn't feel that I had a lot of struggle when I moved to Paris, because I was really excited about it. It was my choice. So why should I find this complicated when I decided that I wanted to go there? I failed my first exam miserably because I was completely not used to the French system, for example. That was a shock. But, that was nothing that could say, well, this is such a dramatic case that I have to just pack my suitcases and go back to Mexico.
So then you didn't move back to Mexico. You moved again to another country because you went to the UK, right?
Yep.
And then later, I think you came back to France and then you went to Germany. That's where you are right now, right?
Yep.
And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think, after all of this, what are the benefits of moving so much, for example?
Well, the diversity of the ways of thinking of the people you meet, the diversity of the writing the science, funding, talking to the people. The people have slightly different priorities. If you go to the UK or France or Germany, people have asked me, so what's the best place to live? And again, I think this is a question that I don't have an answer. It depends on so many things, like what Jonathan was saying. Well, I got married, so right, if you get married, then that's also different answer. So definitely getting a much broader perspective of how people act, how people research, the research process, the funding, gives you a lot of freedom on the way that you think. And I think that allows you to think out of the box much more easily than if you don't do it. Because you only see one thing, and then of course, and if you have one problem, you're stuck with one problem. But if you've seen that problem is not a problem in another place, then you're not stuck with that problem, right?
In that way, have you seen different manner of working in a lab in this different country? And do you think this has really opened your eyes on how to deal with problems and questioning in science?
So yes and no, because I think in every country I've worked, at least since I have my lab, both in France and in Germany, my lab is very international. So I think the people work differently based on a lot depending on where they were trained. for their PhD or for their master's. But once you have a very international lab, then it doesn't really matter much on the everyday science. Now, on the way that the decisions are made and how the scientific priorities and the funding and the strategy is thought, there I see a lot of difference. Clearly, this is very different in the UK and in Germany and in France. Very, very different.
But you wouldn't say one is better than the other. They're just different.
Well, I think, as I said, I don't want to give you a compromising answer. I really think that it depends on how you want to work, what you want to achieve, and where you're most comfortable with. So, there's obviously, the funding in Germany is fantastic. And that's something that I didn't have in France. That's for sure, that part is much better in Germany. I have been able to do things in Germany that I could not have done in France, scientifically speaking. So I think there is a structure and infrastructural research in Germany which is amenable to get a bit more broader picture, to do new projects or maybe bigger projects. But that doesn't mean that in France this cannot happen, right? So
on the other side, moving so much, do you see some drawbacks of that?
Yes, you don't see your family every Sunday. Your grandparents and your uncles and your aunts. As I was little, Mexico is a very family-driven society, so I used to see my grandparents every Sunday. So these kind of things, right? That's one thing. My friends are all around the world. So if you're someone who feels like going out with your friends every day, that's not a good thing to do, maybe. At the same time, it's fantastic. Every time I travel somewhere, I meet someone, one of my friends, and so that is good.
Yeah, the words become your family.
Yeah, somehow. And again, I guess this also depends on how old you are and what are the needs in terms of emotional and family and work related that you have, and that changes obviously.
And now with all the new technology, I guess you see maybe differently, because you said you started without an email address, but now it's a bit different. Giving a call is more easy than before.
Now not even a call, now it's Zoom, Skype, Zoom. WhatsApp and
what we are doing right now.
Exactly.
I had another question for you. It's have you ever felt kind of inequality about being a foreigner in another country? It means if you felt that being a foreigner in a new country in science has disturbed the way you could move on with science and move on with your work.
No, I think that, so let's say if you tell me whether being a foreigner in a country is a handicap for doing science, no, not at all. This I've never felt. But I have had and even had comments of people saying, anyway, you're from Mexico, so you're not going to make it, basically. And so the inequality or the comments that you get, this I've had. I think now that I'm older, it happens less often, but I still have a few, from time to time, this kind of comments, because I've been now 22 years, 20, wow, how many, I even lost the count, how many years I've been in Europe. France is, my other half, right? I'm half French by now. So I think that I'm a little bit of a hybrid in that regard. But I still get a few comments that annoy me quite a little bit.
So you said just on the off, you said you didn't want to talk about women in science. Can you just tell us why? Yeah,
I'll tell you why, so that there's no interpretation. So I think that it's, I guess that the reason why I don't want to do it just on its own is because it's sort of expected, because I'm a woman, that I have to talk about that. I guess that, my comment was more that I think that the discrimination goes well beyond women. And what I have experienced is more in terms of what you just asked, Renaud. Basically, if I'm coming from a country where maybe, people look down at that. And that has created in me a little bit of, I'm uneasy talking about the problem with women, because my problem is a bit broader, right? And broader, I see.
So is there something we can do about diversity generally? Do you think there is something we can do?
That's what I meant with my answer when you asked me that. I think that diversity is something that is important, and that shouldn't be only women. And I talk about that with my lab very, very openly. We have many, many different nationalities. And obviously as a white European, people have not experienced necessarily what these comments of, you're coming from Mexico, you're coming from Syria, you're coming from, call it, Brazil or India, etc. So I think that being aware of the capacities of everybody, regardless of whether that person is from India, from Mexico, from a female or whatever you want to put, I think this is more the awareness that I would like to raise. And that's why I usually try to deviate the topic from women to a much more inclusive of diversity. Now, at the same time, I know, even though I never had that need myself, but now, the recent years I've been told that by my peers and by younger people that younger people need role models. So it's not that I don't want to talk about it, because I know that for some, maybe women, or for some Latinos, or for some, whatever you want to call it, it's important maybe to see that, you can do science and you can do it nicely, even if you're not French in France, or, German in Germany, and so on. So it's a bit of a delicate balance, and this is why I mentioned what I said in that regard. So, I tend to talk a lot to young people in general, just go for it. And that's exactly what you asked me at the beginning. What's your recommendation? Just go for it. If you enjoy it, just go for it, do it. And as one of my friends used to say, if you perform, things will work out.
That's really interesting what you're doing, because we had a guest before you that really talked also about this power of diversity, and that you have to talk with people. So it really makes sense what you're saying, and thank you for sharing this with us.
Your last move was to Germany to take up a job as a director of a new institute. So we understand why you changed country, but why take on this enormous job of being director of an institute? What made you take on that job?
So I think it was, again, mentorship. I wanted to twofold. I wanted to have the possibility to mentor younger people, but younger, not so young also. So basically group leaders, junior group leaders. So I wanted to have that opportunity to share my failures and my not so failures and my successes to people who are motivated about starting their groups. And I thought at the same time that could help me to shape the way I think that science could be done in a positive and enriching manner by creating a small institute where, I could try to put my ideas on diversity, on horizontal hierarchies, on exchange, on openness, and how I think that science should actually be done.
What convinced you that you were ready to be the director of an institute?
Well, nothing. I was so surprised when I got that job offer. I was sure that this is whatever. Then I got a job offer. So at some point, I thought that, my friends were also telling me that that I was not getting that for free. So that if people were offering me that job, that they the people could be probably, hopefully, clever enough to know that maybe I can do the job. But of course, you have no guarantee that you can do that. And it's still, I think, too early to tell. I guess at each stage of your career is the same thing. You just have to go for it and work hard and put whatever you have best without too many mental limitations in that regard, and then try to learn also from mistakes that you do on your way, and listen to the people who work around you and say, maybe that's not so good, but maybe this is very good, and go in that direction.
It's very interesting because we got some same question before, and it sounds like this is the definition of an expert or director. It's people choose you and you just jump into it and you try to make the best of it. And so what have been the challenges as an institute director, and how have you faced them?
So I think that a key issue is recruitment, again, at all levels. So I started the institute, and the idea was to recruit 2 or 3 junior, as we call them, group leaders, even though they don't necessarily like being called junior, let's say younger than you. And I think those choices are very, very important to start with. The rest is basically just maybe trying to get a bit better organized on how you put your time, so that the people in my lab have hopefully not suffered so much in terms of not being able to discuss science and so on. So I could say recruitment, I think it was key if you really want to start something that works. And again, you have to recruit people who are better than you. And yeah, organization with the timing probably. But other than that, I mean, this is something that, recruitment is at the same time, it's very enjoyable because, then you can talk to the colleagues that you recruit and so on.
In addition to being the director of the Institute, you've also been very involved in these big consortiums, so Flagship, for example. So what motivated you to do that on top of everything else?
So in terms of lifetime, what I've been very involved on is on the part of the consortium that is linked to ethics and responsible research, namely. And that also stems from actually quite some years of interest on how we can do research in a responsible manner. So again, there is a gut feeling in terms of there's a personal interest. I think this is important. And I think, again, this is a possibility to really build something that can potentially leave an imprint. So if I have to put some time on it and I can contribute, I'll do it without thinking. I think we have had a fantastic year and a half or something like that, discussing with colleagues, learning a lot of different things, trying to put different fields together to talk about potential problems and so on. So it's also obviously you put your time on that, but you get so much in return in terms of experience that I think is worth.
So you said you used the expression making an imprint, leaving an imprint. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you one example, and I don't know if you will be able to talk about that because it's not yet out. But so one. And this part is not confidential, so we have prepared a white paper that really provides a vision of what we think the European research could be in terms of using new technology for potential healthcare. Having a vision that hopefully the policymakers can take afterwards to make decisions for how to fund research. Because, of course, if we do research with taxpayer money and the decisions on how you're going to fund research are not properly taken, I think this is very bad. So in that regard, I think having a bottom-up, thoughtful experience of what we think we can do as a group of scientists and impact that. The second item is we have prepared a paper, and this obviously you can talk about it. This is coming out in the EMBO journal. It's a commentary on our experiences on what we think could be important to be done in any life science consortium so that ethics, communication, artistic endeavors help the science and become much more interdisciplinary. So I'm very happy actually that there is a piece that is going to go out there with colleagues from the ethics part, from the clinical side, and hopefully people will find that interesting and will try to follow certain practices. We were talking about art before, and this is actually something, for example, that we are proposing, right? We need to get closer to the public. We need to communicate our science better, and art is a fantastic opportunity to do that. And so that's one of the items that we're putting in there, for example, very clear recommendation. There's so many people interested in doing that, and I think that can leave an impact.
You will share it with us so we can share it with the listeners, this paper on EMBO. That's because I think it would be really interesting for everybody.
And I think it's also that it's relatively rare that people document and actually publish their experiences of running these big consortium, because I feel there's a need for collective learning about the mistakes and the benefits of managing these large consortiums. So
it just takes a lot of time. That's why
I definitely know.
Yeah.
In a certain way, this podcast is also about that, sharing
That's why
all this.
Exactly that, and I do think it's important. I mean, you guys are putting a lot of time in something that is important. We have to do these kind of things.
We believe that.
If the public wants to get excited about science and about what scientific research actually is, we need to do that.
Thanks very much. So that's the end of the first half, and I think we really covered a lot of the sort of science and science policy and what drove you to be involved in that. In the second half, so we'll just take a break.
We
Stretch.
Can breathe. Hey folks, don't run away. You're listening to The Lonely Pipette with Renaud Pourpre and Jonathan Weissman, where our goal is to help scientists do better science.
If you're enjoying the show and you want to learn more, you can follow us on Twitter @LonelyPipette, and please share the podcast with your friends.
If you don't want to miss any of our future episodes, you can subscribe to our mailing list and join our community. Click on the subscription link on our Twitter account.
It's as simple as that. Take a few moments to get more tips from the Lonely Pipette. So, welcome back after the break. You're listening to the Lonely Pipette and tips from Maria-Elena. So, the first half we heard a lot about the science. We'd like to hear more about the scientists. And so I'm going to start with a very simple question. So, do you have a morning routine? And what does it look like? Do you have special rituals? What happens when Maria-Elena wakes up?
It takes me some time to wake up and be conscious. My husband keeps telling me that I have a 2-speed motion, one at work and one in the morning, and the one at work is typically 100 times higher than the one at home. Yes. No, not at all. Actually, I'm traveling quite a lot, so it's difficult to have a routine when you're traveling quite a lot. Obviously, now during the confinement we've been at for the last 4 months, I think I haven't traveled for 3.5 months, which is a lot. Even then, I'm not really getting a routine. I don't. I try to start early. Something that I do is obviously check my emails first thing in the morning to try to see whether there's any emergency that I have to deal with or not. But that's basically it.
Do you think it's important that high speed at work and then the slow time at home?
I have never asked myself that question. Maybe it just happens because I need it. Or maybe, I don't know, but I guess that also at work I've always been like, like really a bit like mitraillette. And I actually didn't realize that I had a 2-speed motion until my husband at some point said, what happens. And once we had a colleague of ours.
He's very calm all the time, right?
I actually don't know because I haven't observed him enough when he works. But I think when I noticed it, I was one of our colleagues came to give a seminar, and so we had a guest room, and so he stayed with us. And at breakfast, he said to me, "Maria-Elena, what's wrong?" And then I was thinking, "What do you mean? You're not talking, you're not moving." I said, that's normal. And then he said to me, "I never saw you like that," because he only knew the work part of myself. So I don't know if it is important or not. I think my father used to say that I am at a accelerated speed in permanence, but I never felt it. So
that's great, because the next question that we had is, what's something about yourself that people would be surprised to discover? Apart from the people that get you at breakfast, can you think, is there something else that you'd like to share with us apart from your breakfast speed?
I don't know. No, I guess people would be very surprised to know that I can be quiet.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
Do you need that quiet time?
No. I just think that it takes me some time to wake up in the morning because my brain is still sort of, inside, introvert. Yeah, as I said, it's difficult to say, do I need it or not? I don't have a negative control, so I can't tell you that.
And so we talk about being slowed down. So moving abroad, like you have done, it's time consuming. It can be stressful. So were you stressed by all of that? And how did you manage the stress of being in a new environment? Do you have a tips you can share with us and we can use it right now?
I usually say I'm not stressed. The people who are around me don't believe me. So that must mean that the truth is somewhere in between. Probably what I can tell you is that my move to Germany, I was quite tired because I was, my priority was, my whole team moved with me, which of course was, that was fantastic. Everybody moved, excepting for my technician and one of our postdocs who had just finished. So I was very worried that they would have a lag period. So my priority really was to have the lab settled before they moved, so that first day when they moved, they could smoothly get into the experiments routine. So my current lab manager, Camille, she did a fantastic job. This couldn't have happened without her, and my assistant as well. But I was very not stressed, but I was sort of, having like a completely crazy planning, because I was still running the lab in France, setting up the new one, and trying to, get that everything worked. We succeeded as soon as we moved on a Monday. First confocal embryo imaging was done on the Saturday afterward. But at the end of that year, I was exhausted. I mean, I was really exhausted. And I think I didn't realize it until Christmas, when I took a little bit of time. I said, I'm so tired this year. So more than the stress, I think a little bit of tiredness of when many things come at the same time, and then you just want to do them or have to do them. Then you just put more, and then you feel it a bit later. But I think it's more tiredness than stress in that regard. Yeah.
So you said you took a bit of break to really recharge, right? So do you think breaks are important for firstly for your body to run 100%, and also the mind?
I am really not a good person to ask that, because I rarely stop. I was very surprised when I moved to France to see that people could take 4 weeks of holidays. I said, wow, But I mean, having said so, I do think that having a break is important, and I do encourage the people in my lab to do that. And I tell them, because one of my students once told me, Maria-Elena, you're not a good example. You're telling me that. I said, I'm sorry. Don't look at me. Don't use the bad examples that I'm telling you. If you need a break, you have to have it. So I think again, it is important to try to recognize when you need to stop. And I think you feel symptoms. You are exhausted, you're not concentrating, you're not productive, and of course you need to stop.
Now, how do you make sure you don't take on... So you have a lot of energy, and I know that the community is very appreciative and probably benefits from all the energy you have. How do you stop yourself from taking on too many things?
You don't. You don't. You don't. I mean, now I'm a little bit more... I have to say that this confinement during Corona times has helped me a little bit, because things are slowed down. You also recognize that you don't necessarily need that high speed all the time, and things still work. You don't actually. I take a lot of things on. My way of thinking is that if I enjoy it, I'll do it. Just sometimes it's not possible.
But because you enjoy everything.
Yeah, well, not everything, but a lot of things I do. Then I try to make time for what I think is important. There's a lot of things that now I have to say no because I don't have time, right? If I have an invitation to travel to X place and it happens at the same time I'm at another place, and of course I can't do that. It's
if I can say, it's really interesting that you say sometimes to people, maybe don't copy me, don't do it because I have done that when I was in Texas and I just burned myself. And it's in that way I learned that but I was trying to follow someone really inspiring. This is something that as a young researcher I wanted to push it the further I could, but at that moment I recognized that you should deal with what you have your own identity too, and this is also something that you have to respect.
You have to find a good balance between productivity and health.
Exactly. Something a bit more personal, and you can answer if you want. It's on the top of that, so you said you have a lot of energy, you never stop and everything. So how did you manage your personal and work life on the top of that?
That's a little bit of a complex question, because what people call the work-life balance is very different for different people, right? Some people call a right work-life balance having 4 weeks off in the summer, for example. And I guess I'm completely subjective. Obviously, as I said at the very beginning, I really enjoy what I do. So it's also for me very difficult to say, no, now I stop it, because I like it. But at the same time, there's other things that I enjoy. I enjoy going to museums. I play quite a bit of tennis. And then, I just do more of that if I want, because I also like it. And so I think that, as long as one is satisfied with the number of different things that one does, it doesn't matter whether the work-life balance is 50-50 or 20-80. I think you have to be aware of whether you're satisfied with your everyday life or not. And if you're not, then that means that your balance is not right. So that's not answering your question, but don't know if I can answer it better, actually.
On the contrary, I think this is quite good what you're saying. Like, just identify what is your balance first, and this is the first step to make it better.
And I agree, it's not necessarily about time. It's not just a time issue.
No, sometimes it's what feels you, right? Sometimes you get excited about things, and that makes your balance in a way. Or sometimes you're exhausted and you say, I need to go and have a nice dinner with nice wine, and that's it.
Can you tell us about a fear that you had in your career and how you overcame it?
Rejected papers, for example.
What's the fear there? You're worried that papers will get rejected?
Fear, you mean? No. So yes, I can tell you that might be also useful actually for the younger generation. I was, and I'm still worried about, will I ever make it? That was a permanent thought from the PhD, then in the postdoc.
You can't still have that.
I do actually. Maybe for different things, but much less than what I had it before. But my fear was, especially at the postdoc, to say, I was in an outstanding institute, the Gordon Institute, with great postdocs and students, great group leaders. And then I thought, oh gosh, if I don't make it here, I'm never going to make it. So the fear of not being up to actually achieving something has been, of course, always there.
Is that the standards that other people set, or the expectations that you set for yourself?
I think it is a mixture. I think when I was younger, I thought it was my own expectations. But I think in reality it's a little bit of a mixture, right? Because there's certain standards. I was thinking, will I be able to make up a program of research that could sustain a group? Could I be able to have the publications that allow me to apply for grants to do this kind of thing? So obviously that is a bit of a mixture, right, between your expectations and the other ones.
And how do you overcome those fears?
Working. That's it.
Working solves everything.
I know that this is maybe not a very inspiring answer. I had the pleasure of being at a symposium in Japan last year that Susan Gasser organized, and we had to give like a 5-minute presentation of what were our main failures or difficulties in life, and someone asked me after that, in that area, how do you solve that? And then I thought, very naively, I said, well, whenever things don't work, I always thought you have to work harder. That's how I was raised, in a sense. So that's why, but it's not that, it's stressful. I said, no, I have had several, not really major crossroads, but, points of decision making where you say which time you go or which direction. That become a little bit delicate, and in doubt, working is always a solution.
Actually, there is a quote I really like, and this is from Dale Carnegie. I just find it right now. It's like, it remind me what you just do. It's inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. So you solve it by just putting you at work.
And the interesting thing is that the confidence, at least for someone like me, and maybe of the younger generation, is not something that was there already there. So if you do it more often, and then you have courage, and then it works out, then you also get a bit more confident. So even for the people who are not very confident, I think work is always a solution in that regard, or courage as you're putting it down, because then little by little you grow also some confidence in that regard when things work. Obviously, as a human being, you from time to time need that things work properly to build up some confidence. So I think a good equilibrium there is good.
So my quote is, it's attributed to Mark Twain, but I'm not sure it is. He says, I believe in luck, but I find the harder I work, the luckier I am.
Exactly.
So that's what that fits with what you.
I think that is actually true.
Can you tell us about a particular challenge that you have overcame and how, and which advice you could give for young scientists which face similar situation?
Maybe I'll tell you something that is a little bit more personal, but I think that might be also something that younger people might think about. because we are often doing our PhDs and postdocs, we meet our partners or future spouses or husbands. And I've been asked this often, right? How do you sort a double career and so on? So I met my husband in England during my postdoc. I think one recommendation that has worked very well for us, and again, this is personal, right? There's always a point of decision. You start your lab at the beginning, then you have to move. I think making a combined decision has always been very important, for example. So that has been, if you ask me about challenges, people would find out that, we have to find two positions.
So some couples, they alternate. One makes the decision, then the next one.
I don't think that's actually a good thing, but again, that's how I was raised. I'm a true believer of win-win situations in that regard. And I think that gives you a lot of power in that sense. Of course, that doesn't mean that it's not always easy, but it is possible, even if it takes time. That has worked for us. That every step we've decided, as a combined entity in that regard.
Okay, so we're moving towards wrapping up. We have a question that we ask everyone, which is, what advice would you give yourself if you met yourself 20 years ago?
Again, a tricky one.
Drink more. Drink more wine early on,
We can keep that if you want.
Yeah, then you have to add drink more French wine. I don't know. I think for many, at the very beginning, maybe I was a little bit too shy. Maybe I could have felt a bit more confident for some of the initial decisions that I made, even before I moved out. So when I was, for example, in the decision making, just probably, realize that you can ask for more. Not always give, but there's always like a balance between what you give and what you can be offered in that regard. And I think maybe I could have profited or benefited more from different experiences if I could have been a bit less shy in that regard.
So I'm just trying to think what you could have done if you'd if you'd made more effort at the beginning. So can you think of an accomplishment that you're particular? So bearing in mind that it could have all been even more impressive, what's an accomplishment that you're particularly proud of personally?
The people I've trained. When I see them leaving the lab and developing, the students and the postdocs, that's something I'm really very touched always. Because that there's stressful moments during their time, and people are tired or not. But in the end, I'm super happy that when they go to good labs, they get good grants, or they get the labs, and this is something that really plays with them. I think that the true mentorship, that's what it is, right? Seeing the people that you train going and trying to do as best as they can.
Okay, and what's something a failure that you've learned from?
Oh, I have many failures, as I said at the beginning. When I was very young, I was working with a student who had some problems, actually relatively serious psychological problems, and I was at the beginning not aware of it. And at some point, I became aware of it, and it turned out that we were in the lab in a relatively stressful period, and I naively thought that I could help. And I tried, and obviously I failed. It's not that I failed, but nothing happened. Mm-hmm. And I think I became very involved because I was really trying to help and thought, how this is possible that this person feels like this. And so there, I think a bit of a learning that I had is, and that was actually after talking to one of my colleagues who said, some people maybe could need a different environment or a professional psychological help. And I was actually told, don't get involved because of that. So I felt it a bit like a failure in a sense that I thought I could help because, I liked this person, I was working with this person, but it was obviously a complete failure. And that I learned a little bit that also some people need their own space in that regard, and, they need some different ways of working. And I think I never did that again.
So wrapping up, we want to ask you, where can people find out more about you and your work?
So obviously we have our website, which is now in the process of remaking. So hopefully there'll be a bit more information in the next 2 months or so. There are quite a few videos online in YouTube.
So where people can find it, they have to type the name of the institute in YouTube, or?
Yeah, no, usually, so with my name and epigenetics, for example, there's something that I think explains to the lay public quite interestingly, I think, what epigenetics can do to our society. And that was a video that, so one of them is on my own, and the other one is by two other colleagues, Andrew Pospisilik and Uli Grosny-Klaus from the plant perspective. So we did that for the World Economic Forum, which was actually a tremendous experience. And I think that explains quite nicely what the purpose of this basic research is. And in that occasion, then there were also several interviews where people wanted to ask, right, why is it about ethics and what is it about basic research that motivates you? So typically, my name is so complicated and so long that if you Google it, at least the top hits, I think that's...
There's only one.
Not the only one, but there's not many. I think that if you type my name and epigenetics, I think this is probably only me.
Yeah, is there anything else you would like to add? Any closing remarks?
No, I don't think so. I think if you want this to be a bit of an inspiring session for the younger generation, I will probably just say that science is a fantastic endeavor, and people have to just let go and enjoy themselves, and it takes you to very interesting paths if you let yourself just freely go into research.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria-Elena. That was great.
So that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining us at The Lonely Pipette.
We hope that you learnt something new, that something resonated with your own experiences, or that you just enjoyed the science.
Let us know your thoughts on Twitter at Lonely Pipette, and please share it with your friends in the lab. If you want to join our community, you can subscribe to the Lonely Pipette mailing list or mail us by following the link available on our Twitter profile. You will receive the next episodes directly in your mailbox. How cool is that?
Stay tuned for the next show, and remember, you might feel like a lonely pipette, but it doesn't mean you're alone. Tips from the Lonely Pipette can help you to do better science.
À bientôt!
À bientôt!
Hey guys, one last thing to finish up. If you like the soundtrack of the show, you might want to know who is the artist behind it. The song is called Lovely Swindler by Amaria, a talented French artist who composes electro swing. We are really grateful for allowing us to use it, and if you like it too, the best thing to do is to share it. Thanks again, and see you soon!